Really excited to jump into today's event, and it's my honor to introduce Abby. So I'm going to read her bio. Abby Martin is the president of Ampleo's HR division, known for her expertise in helping businesses unlock their full potential through their workforce. With a proven track record of over 15 years of experience as an HR people operations executive, leading all aspects of the employee lifecycle. She has aided organizations of all sizes from startup to Fortune 100 companies in achieving business goals through strategic talent management. She has proven success in helping small and medium-sized businesses recruit, retain, and develop top talent, ensuring a compliant and high-performing workforce. She has a hands-on approach. Abby works directly with clients to identify their toughest people challenges, and she designs and implements practical solutions that create lasting positive change within organizations. So, Abby, thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thank you. I finally, I just realized what's more awkward than having happy birthday sung to you, and that's like having your bio read out loud while you're on the call. I can't be the only one that doesn't like the awkwardness of having happy birthday sung to you, right? But I'm excited to be here. Let me get this accepted so I can jump into the slides. All right. I'm going to keep the chat open. So if you have questions, let me know. Can you see me now, Matt?
I'm not seeing the screen share.
Oh, you're not? Okay. Hang on one second. Let me try that again. Sorry, everyone. Okay. You got me now?
Yep, it is there.
All right. So just a reminder of where you are and what we're doing right now. So we are here on January 14th, can't believe it, 2026, to talk about embedded recruiting, which is a mouthful. I get it. You may sometimes see in this presentation it referred to as RAS, RAAS, and that just stands for Recruiting as a Service. So I use them interchangeably. If my fingers get too tired from typing out all the D's, then I jump to RAS. So here's what we're going to do today. Really quickly, we're going to talk about who we are in terms of Ampleo and Ampleo HR, what we do, how we do it, and then go through any questions you have for me. So I'm going to blaze through this first part because this is not what you're here for, but I have to do it. So who are we? So the Ampleo group has actually been around for about 3 decades. Up until 2023, the focus was only on providing fractional services. So fractional accountants, controllers, and CFOs. And then since 2023, we've been expanding our service lines into different verticals. So you see here, we're a full suite of managed professional services. We want to be the partner of choice for small and medium-sized businesses through their growth journey. And if you're wondering, like, why did you get into that? Or why did Ampleo decide that was going to be our market? It's because of these small business failure rates. And so what we've learned is that 50% of small businesses fail within 5 years, 65% fail within 10 years, and that number jumps all the way to 75% of small businesses fail within 15 years. And that just didn't sit right with all of us. So that's why, we came together and realized that small businesses really are the backbone of this country and how we operate. And we wanted to figure out a solution to help more of these businesses survive and thrive. So that is the vision of Ampleo. I am here today to talk to you about Ampleo HR, which is one of the 3 verticals that we have here at Ampleo. So what I'm going to be focused on is just the HR side. So what do? So we really pride ourselves on providing the right amount of HR at the right time. So if you look at any of our collateral, you'll notice the cute Goldilocks and the 3 bears. That really is something we pride ourselves in. I've been internal HR before. I know what it's like when you have too much HR. I also know what it's like when you don't have enough HR. And so we come in and fill that gap with just the right amount. We kind of have 4 things we focus on. One is people programs, really coming in and executing customized people programs to increase workforce productivity. So things like performance reviews or manager training, recruiting, which we're going to spend a lot of time on today. So I'm not going to go through that right now. We also help with HR operations, so the management of those essential HR tasks. So think the more transactional, reactive side of HR, running payroll, administering benefits, and then also the compliance piece, right? You can't really talk about HR without talking about compliance, and we want to ensure all of our clients are able to run a compliant business. And we do that, through things like reporting on payroll taxes and I-9s. All right, we have 3 types of service models. One is our core, and that's where we come in. And this is on the left side, this core bucket is where we find most of our clients sit. So there isn't a dedicated, we're coming into companies where there isn't a dedicated HR person. HR is kind of handled ad hoc and duct taped together by a few different people, right? We see the office manager doing some HR. We see the accountant running payroll and also being asked questions about reductions in force. We have the CFO and the CEO who, get in firefighting mode when these issues come up. So we come in, we get our arms wrapped around all of it, and we become like your core function of HR. We can do that through our embedded model, which is our preference, or outsourced if that's the preference of the business. That operates on a monthly fixed fee. Extend is more where you have an existing HR person and they need an extra set of hands, which is what embedded recruiting is. And then we have project HR as well. So if someone's going through due diligence or they have a compliance check that they want to do, then we can come in and help that way. So let's get to the star of the show, which is embedded recruiting. So what is embedded recruiting really? It is a business model where we're plugging seasoned recruiters directly into your organization. So think they're using your email, they're coming to your team meetings, the hiring managers are reaching out directly to them. Next thing about embedded recruiting is it's a flexible subscription. So instead of, you having to do a placement fee or hire an in-house recruiter that you then, are paying month over month, even if hiring slows down, ours is flexible. You can turn it off and you can turn it on. And, as I started with around the integrated piece, they're part of the team. So they act like a colleague. They're there really to ensure you're hiring top talent, not just the talent that they happen to find, but top talent that is going to, stand the test of time at your company. So let's compare embedded recruiting to the 2 models most people are familiar with. So in the middle, we have internal full-time recruiter, and that is what typically people think of when they have a variety of roles they need to hire. I usually see that when someone has like 5 or more roles in a year and they think, oh, I need a full-time recruiter. The pros of that can be that they're fully integrated into the culture. You're getting a long-term relationship out of that person, but the cons can be high fixed costs, right? You have the overhead of salary and benefits. It's less scalable. You can't, it's harder to downsize. There's limited capacity, right? That person has 40 to 50 hours a week. And in really heavy hiring periods, there is that potential for burnout. The second option on the far right is a placement agency or a headhunter. And this is what most small businesses kind of use to plug the recruiting gap. And the pros are there's quick access to a talent pool. I will say, I do think it's less quick access than it used to be, right? Before tools like LinkedIn Recruiter and social media and things like that, these placement agencies really had their kind of roster or corral of candidates that they could easily call as soon as there was a role open. And now, with technology and different advancements, everyone kind of has access to the same talent. The pros are it's pay for performance. So, you have those contingency fees, meaning like if they don't find you someone, you don't pay. And that can be attractive to folks for sure. The cons of that are it's a high placement fee, right? So if you hire someone, you're typically paying that 20 to 30% of the person's first year's salary as the fee. It's very transactional, right? They're just sending you their candidates, less focused on the overall kind of culture fit, right? Because they're not really understanding the culture, they're not embedded in it. And they have less control over the process. So they're not really helping out with scheduling interviews and onboarding and things like that. So let's jump all the way back now to embedded recruiting. So the pros of this are flexible and scalable. It's cost effective. It is still integrated in the culture and team. It is dedicated, specialized talent. You're not going to have folks switching in and out, and there's a much faster ramp up. The cons are it's not a permanent employee, so some folks feel like can be less loyal. And it does because, of hours, it does kind of force this clear communication between you and your consultant because you're trying to make the most of your time. So in my opinion, embedded recruiting really is the best of internal full-time and placement put into this model. Okay, so why are companies using embedded? So it's scalable, right? You have this brand consistency. So when you have an embedded recruiter, unlike a placement agency, we're carrying these candidates all the way through. We're finding them on LinkedIn, or we're reviewing their resume to a job posting. We're doing the screening. We are following up with them after interviews. We're helping prep them for interviews and answer questions. We're negotiating an offer, and then we're helping with that first day logistics. So it's really consistent the way that we're able to reach out to all candidates and have that feel the same no matter what role they're being hired for or what candidate they are. So also another big thing of why people are doing this is because of the hiring manager enablement. So unlike a placement agency that's just feeding you candidates, we're kind of hand in hand with your hiring managers and trying to train them as they work. So helping them understand, what is a good selection and assessment process, helping develop a job scorecard and really get the thoughts in their head out on paper. So building that hiring muscle is something that's also important to us. You get really clear on your budget, right? You have a fixed cost month over month, so you know how much you're paying. It's not going to come down to, a percentage of a person's salary. I think there's better incentives for this model. Our recruiters are really just incentivized to take things off your plate and find great candidates. They're not, incentivized for you just to hire their candidates or for their candidates to accept your role. They're really incentivized all along to just make this more streamlined for you. And companies are recognizing that hiring success isn't just about finding people quickly. It's about building systems that support long-term success. And I can't stress that enough. Once we get a process set up, it just makes it much easier for everyone else instead of that overhead of like, oh gosh, I had someone leave and now I have to hire someone. And it can feel daunting because most hiring managers are left with the buck stops with them. They're left with kind of moonlighting as a recruiter when they have an open role. So this is how embedded recruiting helps all of these things happen without hiring more full-time staff. And who is using embedded recruiting? So startups preparing to scale, that's a big one that we see. So let's say they just, finished a fundraise and they now have the funds to go out and hire. We can come in and help build that scaffolding of their hiring process, get roles opened, really help with employer branding. Other companies that we see are the growth stage companies with inconsistent hiring. So let's say, they're using 5 different placement agencies. The process can feel very inconsistent. You don't have access to different data that you would want to know about your recruiting process, right? Like how long does it take to fill a role? What percentage of our offers are being accepted? And being able to bring that consistency is a huge, attractive piece for growth stage companies. For mid-sized businesses with lean HR teams. So this is where we come in and let's say someone has an HR team, but they have 10 new roles they need to hire. And they just need an extra set of hands to come in and take recruiting off of the plate of the HR team. We can come in and do that. And really just any team wanting to raise the bar on their talent quality. We're very excited about this model because it evolves with your business. The recruiter that is working with you becomes a thought partner, a builder, and, really that steadying force steering change. Okay, so that got through what we do. what is embedded recruiting? And I'm now going to spend a few slides going through what exactly this looks like day to day, right? Let's get clear about like what our engagements look like. So when we kick off a new engagement with a client, you will be assigned a dedicated HR manager, and then you also have a partner or a deal partner on the roll. So you're kind of getting 2 for 1. I like to say you have your day-to-day HR manager who's focused on delivering HR expertise within the projects. So for embedded recruiting, it would be recruiting projects. And then you have a deal partner, which would be myself or one of the other partners on the team that really are overseeing the performance of that recruiter, making sure they have the right frameworks, making sure they have the right tools, helping unblock anything, helping coach. So, that's partly how we keep the costs down as well, is that we have HR managers that our deal partners manage and coach through the process. Okay, let's get into that day to day. So embedded recruiting, it's hiring with you, not just for you. There are 4 stages we're going to go through of how we do this. The first is really planning the role. So we meet with hiring managers to finalize job descriptions, define the ideal person for the role, and agree on hiring steps and timelines. So we will really roll up our sleeves and sit down and say like, okay, here's who we think they need to meet with, in what order. Do you want to do batch hiring? Do you want to meet people as they make it through the process? So really trying to figure that out. We will advise on talent strategies. So we will create and carry out a specific plan for finding candidates. And what that can mean is, if you're looking for someone to be a controller with experience in transportation and logistics and X, Y, and Z, then we will help develop that strategy for you. So, if it's different competitors you want to try to poach from, or if it's different job boards or different conferences, we will build that strategy with you. And then we'll also provide market advice. So we will help with the tools that we have, the benchmarking compensation tools that we have. Those are your tools as well. So we will give you advice on what others are paying, what your peer group is paying for a similar role. We'll let you know how that's stacking up against your competitors. So that planning the role is something that you're going to get with our embedded recruiters. It's not something you get typically with the placement agency. So we think it really just kind of starts the process off right. And then from there, we go to finding and vetting candidates. So just like you would get with a placement agency, we do proactive searching, or sourcing as most people call it, where we're going out and using tools like LinkedIn Recruiter, Indeed, different databases, and proactively looking for qualified people. So a lot of this people call it passive candidates or outbound sourcing. We will do that for your roles. In addition, as we're posting roles, we will review the resumes of anyone who applies directly through your hiring system or your applicant tracking system. And this is another thing that differentiates us from placement agencies, where you're still on your own to review all these resumes of people that are applying as inbound candidates, and we take that off your plate as well. We will also work with you to build talent lists. So if you find that, hey, I want to hire a BDR every quarter, or once we hit a certain amount of revenue, we will help you start building those talent lists. These are your lists. These are, unlike a placement agency, these aren't our, book of candidates. Anyone that we find or that we identify, those are your candidates. So we will help build talent lists for you, for folks that you can call on for roles you need to hire for repeatedly. To managing candidates. So not only do we start the process and we do the screening, but we will do these recruiter screens and do the initial interviews. We will ensure that the candidates have a great experience. So making sure that they aren't ghosted and that someone's following up with them after the interview, that we're getting interview feedback from your team, and really just moving the candidate along in the process. And then internally for your team, we'll manage all the interview schedules. We'll help nudge folks to provide their feedback. We'll help them write their feedback and coach them on, how to do that if we need to. Some companies really like it to set up an almost like a rating scale, and we can do that as well and help train managers on it. So we really manage the whole assessment process and making sure that, your your hiring managers and your employees really are just looking at that bottom of the funnel finalist and not having to do all of that upfront work. And then once you find a candidate, we will help manage the offer process. If you don't have an offer letter, or an employment agreement, we can help build that for you. We will explain benefits to the candidates. We will extend the offer and negotiate. And then we'll handle all the communications after they accept the job. So once they accept, you don't want that candidate to be in a black hole until their first day. You want a welcome email. You want, we're excited to have you here, potentially sending them some company swag, making sure that they understand what's expected of them on the first day, and then managing that first day pre-start logistics. So making sure all the paperwork gets done, like the I-9s, making sure, that the whomever's handling laptops or email aliases or adding them to Google Workspace, that all of that gets done. So it doesn't just stop with offer for us. We want to make sure that they are tucked in really nice on their first day. So just kind of in summary about that, the day-to-day benefits of using an embedded recruiter is that we've developed those proactive pipelines that are always on. We own your applicant tracking system. We keep things optimized. We source and screen with an understanding of your role and team, right? Yes, we bring our tried and true experience and knowledge of best practices around selection and assessment, but we also, from being an embedded partner, understand your team and the nuances of that as well. As I mentioned, we coach hiring managers on interview process and making decisions, and we help shape that candidate journey so that they're set up for that onboarding and for, and beyond, as I say here, so that they really are able to hit the ground running. Okay, I linked a case study here. Matt, I believe we are sending these slides out, correct?
Yeah, we can make these available. Yep.
Perfect. So I will give you all the link to that, and I guess I could put it in the chat as well. But you'll read about a case study here. There was a mental health company that needed some help. We actually provided embedded HR and embedded recruiting. And the hiring managers in this instance, they just did not have the bandwidth to recruit, and they had tight budgets, so they couldn't bring in a placement agency for each of the hires. So the solution was we placed that dedicated recruiter on the team. They became part of the daily operation, and they were able to decrease their time to hire, increase the quality of candidates coming on board. And so that case study that I have linked here will go through all of that for you. And then let's just close out with a couple of things around the impact of going embedded. So some of these I've kind of subtly mentioned, and others, we're kind of read between the lines. But these aren't just short-term wins; they're foundations for better hiring for years to come. As we've mentioned, it's a lower cost per hire, no agency markups, no overhead of benefits and workers' comp and things like that. You're going to get higher talent quality because the recruiters are working inside your business and aren't just looking at someone on paper. They're taking the candidate, the resume, and their experience and your business and business needs, and making sure that those will merge well together. We do find that there's a faster time to hire. Our integrated processes reduce friction and waiting. That improved hiring manager support that we've talked about. Not only will we give you back the gifted time, but we'll also make sure that your team is learning as they are going through the process. And then we have found that there's better onboarding and retention with our embedded recruiters versus an agency, because we are really, making the handoff one that feels welcoming and not quite so abrupt. That's like, all right, you're onboarded, you're with that team now. So those are the things that we hear time and time again from our clients that really are game changers for them. Okay, I think I did it. I wanted to leave 15 minutes for questions, and I think I have. I have put my email address here. Please check out our website. I can put that on here as well. but yeah, I would love to hear questions anyone has, because I know I buzzed through that quickly, but just wanted to explain to everyone really what this model is and how we can be beneficial to you and in the success stories of our clients.
Yeah, and anyone's welcome to unmute and ask questions, or if you'd rather put a question in chat. One thought that I had, Abby, is I feel like you mentioned the startup scenario where you get a round of funding and you're looking to grow. I think for a lot of startups, their first key hires are probably people in their own network that the founders trust and want to work with. But then you reach a point where maybe you don't have contacts in your network for a certain type of person that you need that's expert in a different field, and they would be critical to the business. Maybe you can't afford a headhunter, and you can't, it doesn't make sense to have a full-time recruiter as a startup. There's kind of like this critical point where this embedded recruiting model can fill those gaps where you still have the high expertise. You're like getting a coach to some extent.
Right.
I didn't even know this model existed, so I think it's interesting to learn about, but not sure if there are other thoughts or questions from everyone else here.
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit about that point, because I think, you're exactly right, Matt. A lot of times with startups or companies that have just taken on funding, they're going to get clients pitched to them by their board, and which is great, right? I love referrals. I love, finding people, within different professional networks, but that still leaves the people at the startup to have to manage the process. So that's where, I was talking about, like, we aren't incentivized if it's a candidate from your board or it's one of ours. We're incentivized to take them through the process, help that candidate really get an understanding of your company, help them have a great experience. And, internally for you, we're there to be that kind of unbiased third party to say, like, hey, I think you can do better, which is hard to say sometimes when it's a board member referral, let's be honest. But, we don't have a dog in the fight. So we're just here to protect you and be on your side and, hold up the mirror when we need to, if we think you're fitting a person to the role instead of the person fitting for the role.
That makes a lot of sense. I am curious if you have seen candidates react more warmly to someone reaching out that's representing the business versus a headhunter who doesn't have a company email and isn't directly affiliated. They're reaching out in behalf of a company. Like, have you seen that be a difference that matters?
Yeah, I think it is becoming a difference that matters for younger generations, I would say, because, most of the folks that are at the C-level now, they came through a world of headhunters and placement agencies. So I think they don't notice it as much, but the younger generations, I would say, like, they want to know, like, what's your affiliation with the company? And, I hear from folks in younger generations as well that, like, they feel it when a recruiter is only incentivized if they accept the offer, right? So the recruiter can tend to oversell the company to the candidate because they want them to accept it, in parallel with selling the candidate to the company. That makes sense, right?
Yeah, that does make sense. Yeah. It's kind of like the difference between a commission salesperson and a salary sales sales. It looks like Baylor has a question. If you'd like, you're welcome to put it in chat or unmute if you've got that for us.
The other thing that I will mention that I didn't go into in the slides, but are questions we get as we're meeting with clients, is the type of roles that we hire for. And, you know, we pride ourselves on having someone on the team who's a specialist pretty much in any role and can help guide recruiters, but also, you know, think of us almost as your primary care physician, I like to say, right? So we know how to treat most things, but, you know, we're not going to perform surgery on you or try to hire a role if we feel like it's outside of our expertise or you would be better with a specialist. For instance, we had a client recently where we were doing embedded recruiting, and we had probably 5 requisitions we were working on for them. And then they added a new one, and it was a very, very specialized technical role that probably less than 50 people in the country have the right experience for. And so that's when we raise our hand and say, like, I don't think we need to be the ones to cut you open. We're going to find a specialist for this surgery. And, you know, we'll manage that specialist for you, right? Because that's really what we want to make sure is that we're not putting anything else on the person's plate.
All right. Hello. Can you all hear me?
Oh, yes. Hi, Baylor.
Hi. Actually, it spells as Baylor, but pronounced as Baylor. I get that.
Okay.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Baylor.
Yeah. So thank you so much for having me. Thanks, Grace. That was a wonderful presentation, and it's obviously a very good model. I know you're servicing clients from different states, right?
Correct. Yes.
Right. So my concern is, given that some labor laws differ from state to state, how do you manage clients with respect to advising them on specific labor laws based on where they reside? Except if you're telling me that you're knowledgeable on all the labor laws across all 50 states?
We are knowledgeable across all 50 states. That is, you know, that's experience that I have. That's experience that we look for when we're bringing our consultants on board. And, you know, that is something we continue to develop on the team. So we're constantly doing different trainings and updates, and we have access to different tools. So we make sure that our consultants are equipped to advise you.
Okay. Does that mean you can also advise on the constant change in labor laws across the country?
Yes, we can. So we can handle compliance. We aren't going to ever give you legal advice.
Right.
But when it comes to, hey, we want to prepare an offer letter and you're in a state where you're not allowed to have a non-compete, we have that advice we can give you and say, here's the agreement we think you should use. You should get legal counsel to review it. And that way you're taking something for them to react to instead of having to pay a ton for them to start from scratch.
Okay, I got you. Nice. How long have you been in business?
So Ampleo has been in business for about 30 years. I joined Ampleo almost 3 years ago. It was in early 2023 to start the HR practice. So since then we have, I think we're up to 90 clients that we've helped now over the last 2.5 years. So this embedded recruiting model has really taken off and been something that I wish that I knew was going to be this successful and exciting and valuable to clients, but I did not.
Right. So lastly, which states are you based and what's your staff size?
Yeah, so we have about 25 consultants on the Ampleo HR side. Ampleo Group has over 300. We're spread out across all 50 states. You know, we intentionally hire across different jurisdictions and locations.
All right. Well, thank you so much for that information. I'll check your website to learn more about the company. Okay. Thanks so much.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for the questions. Thank you for coming.
All right.
Yeah, thank you, Byler. And in our last couple minutes here, any other final questions before we wrap it up? We do have just like a 30-second preview of next month's event. But really grateful for everyone being here. Any last questions for us or for Abby?
Sorry, Zach. Before you leave, since you're having this event every month, how can I subscribe to be a part of it? Like every month. Well, are you going to send me an email once you have it because I would love to be part of it every month.
Yeah. So if you go to mobrium.com/webinars, and there's a subscribe spot at the very bottom, but you'll get a follow-up from this event that has info for the next event as well. So yeah, just watch for our email. We'll take care of you.
All right. Okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you bet.
Yeah.
Okay. So any other questions from anyone? I'm just going to pull up this last screen here. Okay, perfect. Well, we want to thank Abby for taking her time to present and share her expertise. I highly recommend connecting with her on LinkedIn and following her advice. She has some great things to share. And yeah, this was very interesting to learn about embedded recruiting as a new, another option for filling your hiring needs. And we've got a note from Nicole saying thank you for that she appreciates learning about this. So thank you for that comment, Nicole. And next month, this is our topic. We're having Jacob Crockett, the CEO and founder of Hire Aligned, who's actually talking about managing expectations when it comes to culture. So this actually fits in really nicely as a build upon the topic that we just learned about with embedded recruiting, regardless of if you're doing the hiring or if you're having an embedded team member to do that with you. It's really important to understand the employee experience and company culture so that you can then present it in an accurate light to team members. Jacob is really talented. He'll be talking about that specific topic next month. So definitely tune in. And for anyone who's needing help as far as employer reputation goes, regardless if you're looking for actively filling roles or filling strategic roles from passive candidates, everyone's looking at those employee reviews. And that may damage your ability to, hire someone if they see you've got really negative reviews, when oftentimes that's not a true reflection of the culture as a result of a lot of the negative voices being overrepresented. So if you'd like help with that, that's where Mobrium comes in. Shoot us a message. We're happy to take a look at your employer reputation. So thank you, everyone, for joining us. Until next time, we'll see you next month. And thanks again, Abby, for sharing your expertise. Really, really appreciate that. And you and the Ampleo team.